Okay, welcome to Into the Channel podcast, primarily about women's football. Before we hit the pitch, if you enjoy the show or love women's football as much as your boys do, come kick it with us already. Let's go. Do this every single week, sometimes twice a week. Subscribe, follow YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you like to watch or listen. Links to all of our socials, every single one, all available in the show notes of this episode. I am your host, Dino DeCespedes, and as always, I am joined by my co-host, Mr. Grant Engel. What is up, man?
I'm feeling fantastic, buddy. This was a very good week in NWSL football. One that I think worthy of an adult beverage.
Or two, perhaps.
Oh, look at you. Oh, wow. Almost the synergy.
The alignment.
At the same time. That's what I'm talking about.
Cheers.
Cheers to you, buddy.
Yeah, man. As you mentioned, tons of great football to talk about. I've got takes, I've got thoughts, I've got feels, I've got emotions. A bag, if you will, of things that I want to kind of unleash on today's episode. But I want to kick it right back to you. A little 1-2 action to start off the show. Where do you want to get started?
We are recording this on Monday, June 24th, and there's some news of the day that came out. So let's go into the news. We're reviving this wonderful segment. Not so wonderful for Casey Stoney, though. Casey Stoney out as manager of the San Diego Wave. The club announced today that they are, quote, parting ways with manager Casey Stoney. I was surprised. I'll just get right to that. The Wave, as you might recall, if you have a memory longer than 10 months, the Wave won the 2023 NWSL Shield. They started this season by winning another trophy when they won the Challenge Cup over Gotham FC. Now, it is also worth pointing out that they lost a home playoff game to the Seattle Reign last season, and they currently sit at 3 wins, 6 draws, 5 losses, and 9th in the table with a roster that probably shouldn't be there.
You know, I did feel bad for Casey Stoney as well, because we see this in other sports. You break out the checkbook, make a lot of big moves. The Maria Sanchez move, obviously a huge one. They had a lot of offseason moves as well. And then big name marquee players on that roster. And I think we've kind of been on it the whole season. You know, there's something that's looked very off with this Wave side. I even commented last week going to that Houston match. I'm like, all right, you're playing the dash, bottom of the table, like a proper bottom of the table type team, even though they're pesky. And I said, I'm like, I think they have to get a win. They have to get 3 points. And for a stretch, they look like the better team. But for huge chunks of that match against Houston, they looked on Houston's level. And it's in some spots, like the last 15, 20 minutes in particular, they did not look. I mean, obviously, it's tough because they played the midweek match as well, going to Houston, contending with the Heat. Great friend of the pod at Iron Gazistan checked in to confirm that the Heat was a sitch. It was not a thing. And they couldn't get it done. You know, there's just zero bite to their offense. I'm not sure how much of that is Stoney, but, you know, from the outside looking in, it looks to be like also a leadership vacuum there.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think time will tell. You know how these stories always kind of start to matriculate out after a manager or any kind of coach leaves, or even sometimes when a star player leaves, you start to hear the stories. You talk about potential leadership vacuum, them kind of looking a little just like stagnant on the pitch sometimes. I'm saying this, I have not done any reporting on this. I don't have any inside information, but you commonly see that, hey, yeah, the results weren't there, but maybe there was some other stuff going on behind the scenes. You know, I think sometimes people lose track of the idea that this is a job for these folks, and these are people with personalities. And you think about, you know, workplace dynamics and who blames who when a project doesn't go well, who blames who, you know, when Alex Morgan's not standing in the right spot, or, you know, just her picking her out of the sky as an example. But I think it'll be very interesting to see how you go from 10-6-6 in your first season in the league and finishing third in the table as an expansion franchise, to then winning the NWSL Shield, to then sitting at 3 wins, 6 draws, 5 losses, and you're fired after 14 weeks. I think there is more of this story to be told.
You're probably right about that. The reason I kind of brought up the example of what we see in other sports is somebody ends up being accountable, you know, and I'm not sure, obviously, the mechanics behind the scenes there, but the team as an organization decides to bring in a bunch of players. Those moves don't work. You know, whose fault is it? no way to tell. You know, it's a fault pie. I'll just like break out the pie that you like to kind of introduce.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody's got a slice of the fault pie to some degree. But with that said, you know, you look at the extremely soft edge of this offense.
Yeah.
Just 12 goals over 14 matches. That's brutal. 6 assists total this season. So Corey Bethune has 8. You have a whole team with 6.
Mm-hmm.
And then for every goal that they scored, it takes them 13.6 shots this season. That's second worst in the league. I don't think it helped them that Jaden Shaw also was like extremely hyped coming off some like insane USWNT matches.
Right.
That really just kind of fueled maybe like some larger expectations than were warranted.
Sure.
But either way, things were way, way, way off in San Diego. I think, you know, it's something that we've talked about quite a bit on this show. Sucks to see for Stoney because I think, you know, she's a good manager from what we can see. But I'm with you. I wouldn't be surprised if stuff starts to trickle out here.
Yeah, it's probably only a matter of time. She can counter Lucky Stars, though. I doubt she'll get the Vlatko treatment with the full documentary. So she can rest easy knowing that that's not coming out. But yeah, you know, I wish her well. I just think the Wave haven't won a match since May 8th. Yeah. And that was at home against Utah Royals. In that span, they are 0 wins, 5 draws, 2 losses. I think if you're not the Shield winning manager from the previous season, I don't think a lot of people raise an eyebrow if you get fired after a stretch like that with the talent on this roster. I just go back to my caveman brain where I'm just like, man, they got a lot of good players, and this coach just won. And they didn't start particularly fast last season. So I will say I was surprised, but the more like the numbers that you went over, 12 goals in 14 matches, 6 total assists, with that kind of skill level on the field, even if I've seen some people say that they thought like McCaskill has been like a little disappointing as one of the additions that they got. And obviously you add Sanchez late and you got to integrate her into the offense. Even still, I think the points you made about their stagnant offense, I could see why management made the decision they did.
Yeah, for sure. And we'll obviously keep an eye on Casey Stoney, where she lands next. I'm sure that franchise will be very happy to be able to bring her in. And then for San Diego, you know, we'll see how much of the issue was the manager. I think we're going to learn a lot. On one hand, it feels like the season's still sort of brand new, but the reality is too that we're already in the back half of the season.
Mm-hmm.
And that was part of our big Wave Dash preview from last week. It's like, we're getting into deep-ish waters. It's very risky to be kind of like mulling around. It's not like this team's like 5th or 6th.
Right.
You know, they've been pretty consistently in the bottom 3 or 4 of the standings. So it's more than just off track. This kind of feels a little bit broken and maybe trending towards somewhat of a lost season for San Diego, but who knows? Still a lot of football to be played. Maybe this serves as a kind of like a galvanizing event for them.
You always look for the new manager bounce, so it'll be interesting. They are at home on Friday against the Chicago Red Stars, and then the following week on July 5th, they are in Portland to play the Thorns. So always interesting to see in any sport. What kind of new manager bounce are you going to get? You see it in the Premier League all the time. A club will fire a manager, but right before like the softer part of the schedule, there's like almost a PR thing that they're doing there, being like, "Hey, look, we got the right person." I do not think playing the Stars and then playing the Red Stars, playing the Red Stars and then playing the Thorns, I don't think that's a soft part of the schedule. So it'll be very intriguing to see how that works out.
Totally agree. I want to shift gears here because this weekend was a big weekend for the contenders.
Mm-hmm.